Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and every now and then we do one that just doesn't show up in the shop every day. And this one actually features a preview of some work projects for the week. This is a Berkley reel. It's called the Berkley Glowstik. So what I'm thinking is this is probably a combination reel that was sold rod and reel, that glow stick being the reel. Berkley was contracting for fishing reels to be made under their brand. They've been acquired by Pure Fishing, and Pure Fishing has turned Berkley into a dedicated bait brand. So you get the soft baits and the hard baits and the like. But this one is a combination one. It's got two ball bearings on it. I've seen some Berkley reels that are very nice. They're taken off of the Pure Fishing Penn Battle line, actually. This one, I believe, is taken off of a Shakespeare line. So we're going to show you how to take this apart and service it. This one came in with a video because there was missing a handle. Bobby had sent it to me as a parts reel. And I found a handle. It's not the reel's original handle, but it works. And sometimes giving reels a second chance just means swapping parts from one reel into another, trying to make two out of one and making it go again. Well, we're going to take this reel apart. We'll show you how it's made, how to service it, and how to keep it fishing for a long time to come. And before I get started, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you do subscribe to my channel, please use the notification button. That will let you know when I'm posting a video. And, well, you can make a determination as to whether that's a video that you want to watch. So let's get started here. We're going to start by removing the handle that I just found and fitted to make sure that I had one that works. When I take the handles off with these screw caps, I like to make sure that I put the screw cap back into the handle. That way I don't lose it. When I take my small pieces and parts off, they go into a parts tray. And that's where I'll be depositing all the ones that I remove. Well, this one came in. I have no idea how old this line is. And when you don't have an idea of how old the line is and you're seeking to give it a second chance, get rid of the line. The last thing you want to do is give somebody a reel or sell the reel, have them think that the line is good, take it out, have a couple of break-offs, and get all mad at you. So I'm going to remove that line before this one has a chance to go fishing again. One of the things that makes me think it's a Shakespeare, this has got a plastic spool. It's not a metal spool. It's plated to look metal, but you can see it's the flaking is coming off in that. I would say that this is a value-priced reel. That was probably targeted, I don't know the age of it, but I would say it's targeted towards the lower end. And a lot of times these are what I call bait shop or department store combos. They're sold with the rod and reel. They're sold for the occasional angler who's just going to use it a couple of times, maybe on vacation, maybe weekend trips and the like. And it's perfectly fine and adequate for that. I don't know how it would stand up to rigors of being fished day in and day out, but well, we'll see. Well, we just removed the spool by removing the drag knob. Now we're going to remove the click ratchet and the two little shims for the spool. These adjust the spool height, and they simply pull up and off of that. And then we have a nut that's holding the rotor. I wanted to check to see if I could get the side plate off without removing the rotor first, but regardless, they both should come off for the service of the reel anyway. So I've removed the tie down screw. Now let's see what that handle nut is. It's an 11mm nut. And this one comes off in a reverse thread. That means that you're going to turn it clockwise or away from you to remove that nut. If you find yourself unfamiliar with the reel and you're trying to remove that in a traditional counterclockwise manner and it's just tightening or it's not moving, try the opposite direction. A lot of reels are set up that way so that the screw does not loosen as the rotor turns. All right, with that nut off, we can remove the rotor. And one of the things that we'll see here is this has relatively an old school anti-reverse to it. You can see how it pulls back in. There's a little arm there that is there. When it's cranking away, it lets you go, and then it reverses back in. That's an eccentric driven spring, and well, we'll see what's making that go. The reel looks in pretty good condition. I don't think it may have been used. I'm going to just click that off to the side there. We're going to remove the 3 pieces of that top assembly. There's the click ratchet where you saw that going. There's a spacer, and then there's 2 shim washers from the inside out. This is a good place to tell you to take pictures. If you don't know how the reel is made, and if you're servicing it for the first time, or it's been a while since you've serviced the reel, take the pictures. That way, if you find yourself lost on the reassembly, you can go back and take a look at those pictures and get a good indication of what the orientation was of the parts, the sequence of the parts, and so on. I would expect to find that this reel is going to be very dry inside. One of the things you find with a reel that's pretty much sold for occasional use is no or very limited or occasional service to the reel. Folks think, well, I've only used that reel to go fishing a couple of times. It's still working. Just go take a run at it and just keep fishing it until something breaks. Well, not a good strategy, but it's a strategy that happens from time to time. This last one is a little stubborn. You can use a flat-bladed screwdriver or a Phillips head one to remove the screws. I prefer the Phillips head, and just it seems like it's easier to hold the slot. You'll notice that I put all of the screws on my desk so that I can make sure that they're all the same size. I just took a classic reel apart and found that, well, one of those screws was not the same. Should be able to remove the side plate now, and that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing dried grease inside. On this side, we have a shim washer, and we have a bearing. This says it's a 2-ball bearing reel, so that's the other ball bearing. And I oil bearings. I don't grease them. When grease dries, it becomes very sluggish, and well, it just interferes with the performance of the reel. Let's take a look at this one now. There's another shim washer on the main gear here. Let's put them both on the same one just to keep track of them. You're going to notice there's a little peak hole here. Remember what we said, there's a spring driving this. Well, when we go to reset this, we're going to have to line up a spring with a little slot in this anti-reverse piece. Well, I needed to answer a call. I guess I forgot to mute the phone, so let's, if I'm repeating something I apologize. We're going to remove the crosswind block now. Do the same thing with this, make sure it's clean. In this case, it's very clean. I think all of the greases and oils and the like probably have just settled behind there. Now we should be able to remove the main gear. I guess the sequence of this, for some reason, we want to take our crosswind block out first. It seems like that, oh, that's why the bushing was coming out with the main gear. It was kind of odd. Okay, put that bushing back in. Then we'll turn our attention to the top before we go and service these 2 pieces. And I'll show you where that spring goes and how to set that anti-reverse eccentric in this one. There's 2 screws that are holding on the pinion gear and the main bearing, so let's get those out of the way. And we can put those into the parts tray as well, just so we remember where those go. You know, it's easy enough to say, well, I'll leave them there and I'll start working on this. And next thing you know, your hands brush it or a tool brushes it. It goes bouncing around somewhere, and well, you get more work than you had hoped for. All right, with those 2 screws removed, we should simply be able to pull up on this. I'm going to remove the bearing. I'm going to clean the pinion gear. Now, if you had a lot of dried grease in there, go for a hard brush. You can use a toothbrush if you like. This is, I don't know exactly what this is. It might be a Home Depot pack. It may be a Harbor Freight pack. They're not very expensive. They usually come with the steel wire brush and a brass brush and just a hard bristle brush. So I choose to use the bristle brush and work up from that if that's an issue. Just a light coating of grease When you do the fishing wheel service, please use a fishing wheel grease. I'm using Penn Precision Grease here. There are others. I really don't have a preference. I buy the Penn because it comes in these big 1-pound tubs. But if you want to use a different manufacturer's grease, that's fine. Just make sure it's for fishing wheels. All right, we've greased that up. Now we're going to put that bearing back on. And because I like to get pieces and parts off the table, I'm going to put that right back in. I'm going to collect the 2 screws that we just took out and put those back in as well. If you have any questions on this wheel or the service of any wheel, just leave them in the comments section. I will try to answer them for you. If you try to phone call like that gentleman just did, sometimes I am just so deep into a reel that I just can't answer it, and sometimes I leave the phone where I can't hear it, so it's a haphazard way to try and contact me when I know that if you leave it in the comment section, usually most mornings I will try to answer that before I get into the shop. Okay, we're just cleaning up the rest of the old grease there. You want to do the same thing here. If there's old grease on the back end of the main gear, go ahead and do that. And I'm wondering on this reel now, it's gone fishing. It shows the flaking on there, but I'm wondering how they lost the handle. It's one of those things I like to say if fishing reels could talk. And maybe it's that consumer that they're actually aiming these at. The folks don't, it might be a child or something, and maybe something got loose or they were playing with that handle screw or something, and next thing you know, the handle goes missing. Or maybe it broke and somebody took it off and meant to replace it and couldn't find the replacement or whatever. Always got interesting little stories behind there, and the Sherlock Holmes kind of whodunit kind of thing. All right, so I've just greased the crosswind block and I've put that over the stud in the case. Now I'm putting a good amount of grease onto the main gear. And now you're going to notice there is a spring right here. It rides in the groove of the main gear, this groove, right there. And it has a hook coming out of it. Might be hard to see, but there is a hook right here pointing inward. That hook needs to get merged into the slot right here, this slot. And so the manufacturers give you a little assist rather than kind of being real pokey about it. You want to line up that wire with the sighting hole in the main gear. That way, when you go to put it in, you can usually look over the top on this for a little bit. And then when you can no longer do that, then you want to sight it through that hole. And it's this one's a little tricky because it's such a small hole. Usually the holes are a little bit wider. Okay, I think I got it that time. This is in the off position. Yep, it's working. You can see if you hold the tension on the main gear, you can see that that lever is working. All right, we can do it a couple of different ways now. But the easiest and best way for me is go ahead and install that axle shaft. We've cleaned it up, just a light coating of grease on that axle shaft. Anything more than that is going to be wasteful because when it comes through your pinion gear here, it's going to scrape off. Need to turn that bottom piece down here to get that stud out. A little bit of grease onto the back end. That's what I was saying about you got to be careful. That's the screw for the crosswind block, and it just came out with the crosswind block itself. So got to be careful. Always got to be aware of what things are happening around you when you're doing this type of repair. Okay, that's in. The flat side faces out towards you. We bring that through the pinion gear, through the crossline block, like that, and line up that small hole on the bottom for this screw. Today looks like it's my lucky day. I didn't lose a spring. Just a note, if you find a spring that looks like a horseshoe, it's a tension spring for this anti-reverse override. We're going to back that override out. And now we can put the bottom of the case on. We've already oiled the bearing. We have the 2 shim washers on there. This case is going to hold that spring in. Just make sure that you line it up and you hear a nice solid crisp snap like we just heard. Get the 4 screws. And when I have 4 screws that are somewhat rectangular or square shape, I like to do a cross pattern in terms of tightening these up so that I keep the tension on the case equal. Let's go grab this side, come down to the other side. So these have a place. I know a lot of folks, I have a vivid memory of a fellow that I used to stay in touch with who was going to go fly fishing for the first time. He was going to be in a business conference kind of a thing, and he had been invited by one of the people to go trout fishing, fly fishing, and really didn't have an interest in it, but he had an interest in, I guess, the business of this fellow. And what he did was he went out and purchased all high-end equipment. He bought an Orvis rod and fancy reels and things like that, and really didn't enjoy it. And said, geez, it was an awful expensive sales call. Well, I think the lesson learned there is that you should start with something that you're comfortable with and something that's inexpensive so that you don't suffer a significant loss if you just don't have the knack for it or the desire to do that. You know, a lot of folks have spent a lot of money in the tackle industry, and the pieces are laying in folks' closets and the like. And my advice to you is, if you're going on something like that and they have a guide service, I'm sure they did, then what you might want to do is you might want to just go and ask the guide to supply the equipment for you rather than investing that kind of money in it. Okay, once you get it started, work it in by hand. Remember, it's a reverse thread, so turn it towards you or counterclockwise. And grab that 11mm nut for the final turn or two. Okay, once you finish tightening it, line it up so that you can get to the place where that tie-down screw works. Grab the tie-down screw, put that in the case, and tighten that down. Okay, if you like at this point, give it a spin, make sure everything's working fine. It appears to be. We'll give it a final test soon. All right, get that replacement handle that we found, put that in. And all we really left is to service that spool. And one of the things to note with handles is there's about 4 or 5 designs, but a lot of these are kind of interchangeable. So even though you don't have a Berkley reel, it may be that a Shakespeare or another kind of manufacturer's handle will work in that reel. So if you have a spare handle laying around, give it a try before you give up on the reel. All right, to service the spool, we're going to remove that pentagon clip. I'm thinking we probably have felt washers in this one. We actually have washers that require no service. So the first one in is actually this bevel washer. Then we have one of the reds. And here's problems with these types of reels. That's a poorly plated drag washer, and that's not going to provide very good performance because it's got rust on it. These are steel washers. Do your best you can with something like a steel wall to remove any rough spots. And one of the tricks here, if you wanted to, that top one seems to be in better condition. So one of the things you might want to do is take that top washer that's smooth, put that one in instead. Go to the hard washer for the second one. Next one up is called an eared washer. It has the points and they fit in the slot of the spool. You have the plastic one goes up top, and we're going to put that one that's a little rusted on top. That should keep at least one of the sides out of harm's way. And just reinstall that clip. Start with one side in the groove, work that clip around, and make sure it seats into the lip that was created in that spool. So that's your drag stack. Go ahead and put that on. Oops, that was an oops. Should have looked at my part straight. There's two more pieces here. First one is the click ratchet for the noisemaker when the spool is letting out line under drag. The second one is the little shim washer for the height of the line. And then set your spool, set your drag adjuster. And to tighten this down, make sure those drags are holding first. And hard washers do not require any kind of drag grease. Yeah, that's holding. I'm going to back that off now. All right, we're going to give this a final test. One of the things I want to do is I want to oil the line roller and the seams of the bail. Sometimes that plastic swells and gets dried and makes the bail trip a little difficult. Let's give it a test. Look at that, we got a nice smooth operating reel. It's given a second chance because, well, we've cleaned it up and we've found the replacement handle for that. So I hope you've enjoyed that. This is a Berkley reel, Berkley being part of Pure Fishing, which owns Penn and Abu and Mitchell and other brands. And this one is called the Glowstik. If you have one of these reels, you now know how to service that. You learned a little trick there about how to align for these old school anti-reverses. And, well, you saw the general servicing of the reel overall. I hope that's been helpful, and I hope you've enjoyed it. To our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you do to keep us safe. I appreciate your day in and day out dedication to service. To everyone, please enjoy the art of reel repair. If you have questions, ask. If you want to learn, just start taking reels apart. That's the best way. Experience is the best teacher. And keep your reels serviced and ready to go so that when the fish bite is on, you don't have any issues with the equipment. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.